Shalom Aleichem, everybody. This is the Christian Anarchist, and this is a hangout I decided to do over the topic of jonnykzj. This is also known as Talking Theology Thursdays, because why? Well, we wanted to do something that was a clever name to get all three T's in this. But apparently the Thirsty Theist was taken and we couldn't do Thirsty Theist Thursdays. So, thank you, Holy Spackle. Anyways, so this is a bit of also a parody of the J.D. Kane show known as Talking You Know What Tuesdays. And for today's subject, we are talking the following. jonnykzj and his Christian Jihad war. So let us figure out what I mean. You've heard the claims that Muslims have used to say that the Bible has promoted jihad in Luke 19, verse 27. But the same thing is, Johnny always tries to say, Islam is dangerous. Islam is dangerous. Look at all these things that they promote. Well, it's ridiculous that he's going to say that, but at the same time, he has made a video on his channel, on his YouTube channel, and in it is called President Vladimir Putin, Please Teach Turkey a Lesson They'll Never Forget. If I have time to remember so, I will leave a link to the video in the description so y'all can check that out. Or if you want to ask for the link to that during the live, actually, I'll do this right now so I don't forget. And some of y'all want to do the live feed on our Google Plus page. I will post the link there so y'all can check it out. I will let that be known. So anyways, he goes, and before this video started in a hangout thing, I talked to him. And he basically talked about this leader, Erdogan or something. I don't know who this guy is. Apparently he's like a Syrian or Turkey leader of some sort, and he's a Muslim. And what Johnny wants Vladimir Putin to do as in retaliation for the airstrikes that happened, well, not the airstrikes, people that shut down, Turkey shooting down the Russian aircraft that crossed over the Syrian border. What Johnny wants done, in addition to the retaliation that Putin has already declared, he wants, apparently, he told me he wanted a laser to be struck from Russia or from Russia's airspace and to strike down on and take off some of Erdogan's fingers and almost kill him. One of the things he also suggested was the Quran mentioning a certain amount of lashes you need to whip people, and wanting to do in excess, Johnny stated that instead we need to lash them out, lash this individual Erdogan 500 times. So forget this small amount that, the Muslims do it. How about we just go to the fundamentalist extremists and let's go 500 times. It's ridiculous. And it gets even worse from there, because if I'm remembering correctly, he also then wants to tell him to open up a page of the Quran, and then he wants Putin and the other he wants ex-Muslims. Apparently Johnny wants to go over there with him and other ex-Muslims, and when the page is open, he wants to spit on that page and call it garbage and useless. So already not only just disrespect towards an individual, but it's also he's also already said that he's wanted the person to almost die and get whipped. And he said that whenever he's, and then he wants, like Arnold Schwarzenegger apparently did something, according to him at least, I don't know if this is true or not, if anyone wants to fact check this, they can let me know. Arnold Schwarzenegger has apparently he got some people to be only in their underwear and hold a sign up saying that they were filthy trash. Apparently, Johnny wants Adawan and a couple other Muslims to hold up a sign, walk around, and have the sign saying, and I actually posted, of course, the thing on my thing because I listened to the whole thing before I posted it on the link. Forcing them to walk around in the underwear and holding the sign saying that they are a piece of trash that kills innocent people. So already we have something that's very ridiculous here. And I'm also going to be sharing the watch link for some of the people on Google Plus that are needing to watch the thing, or they haven't forgotten or nothing. But anyways, yeah. So that's what he's told me. But the other thing that I don't think he mentioned in the hangout, but he's told me, is that he wants to do this in the hopes that Adawan and other Muslims in the area convert to Islam. I mean, not convert to Islam, convert to Christianity. So he wants to almost kill a person for this desire to convert to Christianity. It's an old Catholic classic with the Crusades to just go out and do this weird idea to, hey, here's what we're going to do. We're going to almost kill you, and hey, after we did that, hey, would you like to join Christianity? Would you like to be converted and know about our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ? It's ridiculous from what he has told me. So, and I'm going to quote some scriptures before we get into the open dialogue, because this is absolute nonsense to me. Okay, so let's start with some scriptures here. Because he is saying that he wants to convert people to Christianity. He wants people to come to know Jesus Christ. He said this, but at the same time, he wants to advocate for people like Vladimir Putin to send missiles, a laser to almost strike a person dead. He wants to humiliate someone. He wants the person lashed 500 times for this. And then by the end of the day, it's like, hey, would you like to convert to Christianity? I mean, at this point, what the Muslims are doing is child's play compared to what Johnny's calling for. So this is why I think the Muslims have indoctrinated Johnny still and had a trap played there, so that he's the Muslim wearing the Christian clothing. But anyways, Ephesians chapter 4, verse 31, and some of these will be from the ESV. I don't know what other translations the last three are from, but here we go. Ephesians chapter 4, verse 31, let all bitterness and wrath and anger and clamor and slander be put away from you, along with all malice. Colossians chapter 3, verse 8, but now you must put them all away, the following: anger, wrath, malice, slander, and obscene talk from your mouth. Jude chapter 1, verse 22, and have mercy on those who doubt. So this is from a rare book that I don't think much people read these days, from the Bible. And when it's talking about doubts, people that either doubt Christ, those that are still sort of lukewarm in Christianity, or just people who doubt God's existence, or the Christian God anyways, the non-believer. Romans chapter 13, verse 10, the Apostle Paul speaking, love does no wrong to a neighbor, therefore love is the fulfilling of the law. So Luke 6:27, but I say to you who hear, love your enemies, do good to those who hate you. Romans 12, verse 17, pay no evil for evil, but give thought to do what is honorable in the sight of all. And then the final verse is James 3:18, and the harvest of righteousness is sown in peace by those who make peace. So already we have these several scriptures. Now, I agree that the government, Putin can do what he desires, and that's what's going to happen. But what Johnny's suggesting, I don't think is going to happen. It's ridiculous to even suggest that as a Christian, to suggest, oh, how about you whip this guy with lashes 500 times, 500 lashes across his back? How about you send a laser and strike this person almost dead? And Johnny even goes to details. He was talking about like how it cuts between his fingers, this laser does. So to suggest any wishing of ill harm or to ask him for the paying of evil with something that you thought was evil, with Muslims killing other people, you want to ask that in the same sense? Demand that when we should be demanding for love and peace, so that way we can at least witness to people, at least show the love of God that is in us. Anyways, so we're going to start with in the order that people have showed up. So we're going to start with Animating Rebel, what his thoughts are on this. Then we'll go to Charles Jennings, who is a very good exegetical person that I've met, very good friend. And then we'll start with Surreal. So, and please try to keep it as limited as possible with the time, because we need to share more time for discussion of various things on the topic. So, and just in case other people come in and they want to talk about this. And if anyone wants to join in, since YouTube's comments are disabled, just head to the Christian Anarchist page on Google Plus and click the join link and you'll be able to get in. So, Animating Rebel, would you like to start us off?
Yeah, sure. I think my views are obviously going to reflect yours. It's kind of just surprising to me that this is coming from someone who's says he's a Christian, right? And it's like you don't even need to be like a biblical scholar or to know those verses you just quoted, right, to see that there's something wrong with it. I mean, any familiarity with, Jesus's basic teachings, is obviously going to tell you that this guy is really going way off track from what the gospel message is supposed to be, what Jesus, taught us we should be.
And is that all?
Yes, sir.
All right. There you go. Okay, Charles. So I don't think you were here for the first half of it, but I did sort of repeat what the whole deal was with Johnny and what he wanted Putin to do to a certain leader, I guess, named Adelwan, who I don't know who that is. So what are your thoughts on what was discussed?
Well, Surreal actually was in here first, so wouldn't he go first? I think he was.
Well, he was, and then he had to leave, and then you came in, and then Surreal came in after you again.
Okay. All right. What I would say is, number one, what country is Johnny a citizen of?
Johnny's he's from Germany, but he was originally from Pakistan.
Okay. Well, so where is he living in Germany right now?
Mm-hmm. He's a ex-Muslim, and that's one of the reasons why he's in Germany. He's hiding from his former Muslims.
As a Christian, and being in the German nation, he should support German policies in the same sense that a Christian should support American policies. Now, of course, that means working within the government, voting, and those things like that. It's not saying that you give a rubber stamp to everything that's going on, but I'm not taking a pacifist approach. I'm saying that one way that the Christian can represent is at the polls and things like this. Now, with that said, for him to talk about what Putin should do to this person is, I would say, Putin is our enemy. I would say Putin's even Germany's enemy. Um, and so to make a statement about what he should do to Syria, I think that's a problem because he stepped outside of his bounds. Because the Bible defends the concept of nationalism in the sense that if you're a citizen of the government that you're living, you have the responsibility to represent, and I believe you have the responsibility to serve, where it doesn't contradict your faith. And so I would say that because I know that Johnny does not believe in what's called replacement theology, that he is being consistent, because what he's doing is he has replaced the theocracy of Israel with his own perception and his own ideas about what nations should do to what. And if you're just dealing with that, and okay, we're talking about geopolitics, we're discussing these things in general. But whenever you start attaching spiritual principles to it, then I think you run into that problem. And so that's all I'll say right now. But I just want to say that he's being inconsistent to his anti-replacement theology beliefs.
All right. So real. Do you know what we've discussed so far on what's the topic with Johnny and what appears to be him asking for Putin to declare a sort of Christian crusade on people who would be Muslims in a sense?
No, I'm not aware. Hold on, let me go on the porch real quick because I'm still with the family. All right. Yeah, to tell you the truth, I had missed about 10 or 15 minutes of what you guys talking about because I'm trying to like go between y'all and family. But well, I did read your detail of how the program went tonight, and I gotta admit there was a part of me that was not shocked, because I said this before and I'll say it again. Jonnykzj is a new Christian. He just is, and the way that he thinks is very divorced and from just a Christian attitude anyway. A Christ-centered, Christ-like attitude anyway. There's a difference between when you start your walk out with God in the book of Romans rather than just the Gospels or just the parables and teachings of Jesus. There's a difference. And something tells me that he did not start out that way. There is an attitude and a mindset that you have that you're supposed to reflect of your God. Literally. And Christ is that ultimate reflection. For him to say, well, yeah, they need to be stripped down to their underwear and, whatever else you said, it really lets me know that like he's really he's really new in the faith. He just is. I mean, personally, when I read it, the first thing I wanted to do was I wanted to just kind of get at him, call him, and just kind of talk to him a little bit, because I don't know if he's under anybody. He needs to be under somebody. To me, he sounds like a rogue Christian. Faithful to God end up saying that faithful to God was his one friend, but he ended up saying, look, man, you end up telling me that you stopped going to your local church. Like, what do you do?
Yeah, I mean, with Johnny's not.
That's not, man.
Johnny is not new as a Christian by any means. He's been here for a while. This is just a new account that he's had, but he's had several accounts. He's had one account.
Yeah, I've seen the other one.
Yeah, and that's been there for a while. And he's not only done this, he's done Pal Talk. So it's been, he's done this. It's just that recently the Calvinism thing is a new thing.
Okay. Yeah. Yeah. And I looked on his video list, and I did see that his transitions. I kind of took a look for myself, and kind of nodded my head a bit, and I was like, okay, he's like a car. He goes in one direction. After that, he goes right in another direction. And he seems to have the Apostle Paul effect, where he'll go extreme in one direction and then extreme in the other. You know, but he needs guidance and some leadership. He needs to sit under somebody. Yeah, last time I checked, Jesus Christ is not a text. You know what I mean? He's a person. You know, and to me, he seems like that he is not applying any Christology to his conclusions about dealing with people. I mean, would Jesus want us to do that? You know, how does that reflect any kind of redemption or reconciliation back to God for anyone? How does it reflect that? It does not. So yeah, I mean, basically at this point, I just really wanted to, just kind of talk to him, whether I just called him up or just when he hosts his next hangout.
Yeah, hopefully he'll
I'm gonna
be.
talk to him.
I invited him here, so hopefully he'll be able to join us if he can get in here.
Yeah, well, it's either two reasons why he's not. Either one, maybe he's got a little Thanksgiving thing going on, or two, maybe he just read the description and was like, okay, I'm sorry. You know, and he only want to talk to nobody. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, I think maybe if you'd have been a bit more subtle in your description, for example, like, we're going to talk about a Muslim debate tonight, I think he would have been the first one to call.
Yeah.
You know? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, and that's the...
Yeah.
Me, though,
But,
and here's... Okay, so let's talk about that then. We're talking about, you know, would this honor Christ? Well, let's start with the typical... with something that Muslims have brought up. And I am going to try to get a secular person in here by the name of Tempest Kitty. I've had a chance to interview her before. She's an Australian.
oh, wow.
But we're going to talk on a theology aspect here before we can get into whether this is socially even acceptable in any stances. So first off, one of the things that Muslims say Christians support jihad is that they say Jesus talks about it. Hey, Surreal, could you mute? Picking up some background noise. Alright, so one of the things that they say is, well, look in Luke 19, verse 27, it just is Jesus, it's the words of Jesus, and he's saying that he wants jihad. So, let me find it real quickly, because it's the parable of the pounds, and it's the ending where it says, but those mine enemies, which would not that I should reign over them, bring hither and slay them before me. So basically the text is saying, and bring those that do not want me to rule over them, bring them and slay them before me. So this is when a Muslim tries to say that text is indicating jihad to non-believers of the Christian faith. And of course, Jesus to them is a prophet of God, so yeah.
Can I address that?
Yes, I was about to ask you, because you are the exegetical person. I would like to see what is the take on the exegetical of this passage.
Okay, the first thing I want to say, or I want to ask, is number one, is that a parable? Is there anything in the text that indicates that that passage is a parable?
Yeah, it is known as the parable of the pounds. But even if it's a parable, like, let's say if it is a parable, then what would the context? What would be the lesson?
The first thing you have to understand when you interpret a parable is that a parable has a point. You have to, and normally the point is either at the beginning or the ending of the parable. And a parable is an extended simile, where an allegory is an extended metaphor. So what that means is, because a parable is an extended simile, it means that everything else that is in the parable is not important for telling the story if it does not support that one point. In other words, the judgment. I haven't dealt with the parable yet. I'm just speaking in general. If that particular aspect of it, where he slays his enemies, is not the point of the parable, then you cannot use that to justify slaying someone's enemies, because that's not the point of the parable. Anytime we share an analogy or an illustration and somebody tries to refute that illustration by saying, well, it breaks weak, all you got to say is, well, that's not my point. My point is this. And so the scripture will clarify that point. Now, a lot of Jesus' parables relate to his kingdom program, how he was offering the kingdom to Israel, how Israel would reject, and then how he would come back in judgment. Jesus Christ is going to wipe out every unbeliever in my position at the end of the tribulation. Okay? But saying what Jesus is going to do himself at the end of the tribulation has no bearing on what the church does now. Because in that issue, we got to remember who Jesus Christ is. Jesus Christ is God in the flesh. He's not just as the prophet. Because in Islam, the way they have it set up is where Jesus is supposed to come back. It depends if which Muslim you talk to about the Mahdi, but that Jesus is going to tell all the Christians that they were wrong and do some other things. So their whole view of Christ coming back is totally different from our view of Christ coming back. But if we understand that Jesus Christ is God in the flesh, and we understand that God is righteous, then his judgment that he brings upon the earth at that time is going to be righteous and just. We cannot do everything that God does. So we have to ask ourselves, is the passage descriptive or is it prescriptive? In other words, is it telling us to go and do likewise like Jesus? Well, we can't be God, so we know that we can't do likewise. Or is it just describing what God is going to do in the flesh of Jesus? And so you narrow that down. And so me being a dispensationalist, these passages are real easy for me to deal with because I say, well, that relates to Israel and the kingdom, but this is the church age. Israel has been temporarily set aside as a nation, and the church's responsibility is found in the epistles and the stuff addressed to the church, and therefore nowhere does it give a basis for the church being a theocracy. Nowhere does it say that the church can launch a crusade. That's not the function of the church. It's not a theocracy.
All right, so, and I think it's soon, so at some point we're going to be getting our secular friends in this room from Australia. Good day, mate. Anyways, I have got to go change up the clothes and put the colors in the dryer and put the whites in the. Oh, great. That can be sounded as a racist joke for some people that are having those kinds of minds right now. But anyways, I gave Charles the mod controls so that if Tempest Kitty shows up before I get back, he can let her in, and but basically just carry on the conversation for a little bit. And Charles, if you want, you can sort of lead it since you have the mod controls.
Well, what if I don't know how to use them?
Well, all you have to do, like if you click over, for example, go to Surreal, and if you see an arrow, a downward arrow on his thing. Okay, he's gone. If you see animating, you go over, you see the arrow on that thing. Just click on the arrow, and you'll see a bunch of options to. You can eject the person, check his profile.
Then to everyone, profile, ignore, muted.
And then there's the show broadcast thing, and you can. Okay, why is everyone leaving as soon as we hover over them?
Because I'm not doing nothing. I just.
Yeah, they're leaving on their own. But yeah, if you see someone that's got some black on them, you have the shade, that means they're hidden from the broadcast. All you got to do is click the arrow, go to the top, and it'll say show and broadcast, and you'll put them in the screen.
All right.
So, anyways, Surreal, are you there?
Yeah, I'm there. I'm just listening now. Because I'm still with the family a bit, but I'm listening.
All right.
Well, what I'll do while you're gone, CA, is I'll share on my screen and look at a particular commentary on Luke 19. Is that okay?
Sure. Do that as soon as you can. I'm just gonna be back with I'm gonna do some laundry, and then I'll be immediately back.
All right.
So, Charles, when you're ready, take it away.
All right. Okay, I'm going to full screen here, and I'm sharing a commentary. This is a commentary that's free, that you can find on the internet. It's called Constable's Notes, and you just type in Constable's Notes and the book that you're studying in, and you can download it. It's 2015, and basically this guy was a professor, and he retired, and now he just does this commentary, and it is a commentary over commentaries. So if you need a quick answer, a quick response, or you want to be up to date on scholarship, it's a good free way to access this. And so right now what I'm doing is I'm looking for the Luke 19 passage in the side. Let's see here. Okay. The parable of the minas, I think that was it. All right. So I'm going to make this bigger so everybody can see it. And see, whenever I mention a resource, I mention it because I want every Christian to have it. You know, I try to mention particular books or research so that we can all add into this. But anyway, the parable of the minas, if this is the right one, Luke 19:11-27 says this. The parable serves in Luke's narrative as a conclusion to the section on the salvation's recipients. It provides something of a denouement, a final unraveling of the plot. You know, that dun 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 dun, that type of movement. Following the excellent example of Zacchaeus' faith and the summary statement describing Jesus' ministry. In the teaching to the people who were observing his meal with the tax collector, Jesus taught several important lessons. He repeated his coming rejection and future return, and he clarified the time when the kingdom would appear. He also explained the duty of his disciples during his absence from the earth. Both the nation of Israel and the disciples had duties to Jesus. This parable summarizes Jesus' teaching on the subject. So we can see that understanding the context of what came before helps us understand this passage. Context is king. The parable also prepared the people for the postponement of the kingdom. And from my position, I'm premillennial. And what that means is that I believe that Jesus Christ is going to reign on earth for a literal 1,000 years. And that Israel, whenever they rejected the offer of Christ while he was on earth, they had been temporarily set aside as a nation. There are still individual Jews being saved. But as a nation, God is not dealing with the nation as his client nation or theocratic administration. Most of the people who believed on him expected it to arrive when Jesus reached Jerusalem. This teaching should have dispelled those hopes. The parable is similar to the parable of the talents that Jesus gave later in the Olivet Discourse, which deals with end times. However, that one lacks the emphasis on the rejection of Jesus, which was appropriate for the mixed audience that Jesus addressed at Zacchaeus' house. The connection between Jesus being near Jerusalem and the kingdom appearing immediately implies that the believers in the crowd expected Jesus to begin the kingdom when he arrived there. Jesus had just told Zacchaeus that salvation had come to the house that day, but salvation would not come to Israel for some time, even though the Son of Man had come to seek and save the lost. The national deliverance of Israel would have to wait. What follows is another of the many passages in Luke that records Jesus' teaching about the future. And then he's going to quote a particular scholar right here. In 1911, the disciples are pictured as expecting something that should have been and could have been apart from the rejection of Jesus. But because of this rejection, the Messianic kingdom for Israel does not come immediately, as the disciples mistakenly hoped. We see that in Luke Acts, the problem of eschatological delay is intertwined with the problem of Jewish rejection. The word eschatological, eschatology, eschatos in the Greek means last. So the last things or the last days. So it's a study of the last things, the last days. And it relates to the future. And it's related to the concept of Jewish rejection is what that person is saying. So here we have the nobleman. This nobleman in this parable represents Jesus. The distant country he went to stands for heaven, and the place he will return to is the earth. Jesus went to heaven to receive the kingdom from his Father. The correctness of these identifications becomes clear as the parable unfolds. A situation similar to the one Jesus described had happened not long ago before Jesus gave this parable, and he may have had it in mind. Herod Archelaus, this is the historical context of what Jesus may have been building off of. Herod Archelaus, one of Herod the Great's son, had visited Rome after his father's death in 4 BC to receive Caesar's confirmation to reign over a section of Palestine bestowed on him in his father's will. Other Herods, Herod the Great, Antipas, Philip, and Agrippa I, also had to go through this procedure, but the case of Archelaus most closely parallels this parable. Jesus' postponement of the kingdom. Some time would elapse between his ascension and his return. This scenario suggests that the Messianic kingdom will not begin until Jesus returns to the earth to rule. Some amillennial interpreters, they believe that there's not a millennium, or that the church is spiritually in the millennium now. They take a more spiritual approach than believing that Jesus is actually going to rule on earth for 1,000 years. But anyway, some amillennial interpreters take this reference to the kingdom allegorically. Now, there's a difference between allegorical interpretation and interpreting an allegory. An allegory is a genre of literature like a parable. But when you say allegorical interpretation, that's a whole approach to Scripture where you don't care about the history, you don't care about the grammar, you don't care about those things. Rather, you read what you want into the text. So therefore, it's an example of eisegesis rather than exegesis. Before departing, the king entrusted 10 of his servants, doulos, with equal responsibility for advancing his interests while he was absent. A mina was a Greek coin worth 100 drachma, or slightly more than 3 months' wages. In the parable, it probably represents the life potential that each servant of Jesus had to invest for his glory. 10 is apparently a round number representing all his servants. Jesus did not mean just the 12. He pictured his servants in the role of modern investors who were responsible to increase the amount of money he had entrusted to each during his absence. In the parable of the talents, each servant received a different sum, representing the unique set of gifts and talents they each had compared with others. But in this parable, each servant received the same sum, 1 mina, representing the one life they each had to invest for their master. The citizens of Herod Archelaus' territory opposed his reign, though his credentials were impeccable. They persuaded Caesar Augustus to give him only half of his father's kingdom and to award him the title ethnarch rather than king. Similarly, the Jews, and particularly their leaders, resisted Jesus' rightful claim to be their king. Jesus was speaking of his second coming here. He will return having received authority to reign on earth from his Father, Daniel chapter 7, where it talks about the Ancient of Days and the vision of the Son of Man. After his return and before he begins to reign, he will call his servants to give an account of their stewardship. Later New Testament revelation indicates that Christians, believers who have lived between Pentecost and the rapture, that's my position, I'm pre-trib rapture, believing that the church will be removed because the church is consistently distinct in the Old Testament and in the church. And they will have to give an accounting of the judgment seat of Christ following the rapture, which is an issue of rewards and not an issue of salvation. Other believers, many of those who have lived in Old Testament times and the tribulation, will give their accounting of the judgment in view here that precedes the millennium. The basis of these two believers' judgments is not their saved or lost condition, but the profitability of their lives for the master's benefit. The first servant reported 1,000% return on the master's investment. This report earned the master's praise and a great reward. The servant had faithfully fulfilled his responsibility. The master considered what the servant had received in trust as a very little thing. His reward consisted of authority over 10 cities in the future and was enormous compared to what the servant had received to invest. In view of the chronology of the judgment, the reward will apply to the Messianic kingdom that will follow and probably eternity after that. Authority to rule, serve groups of other people under the king's authority during the millennium and throughout eternity is the reward. Throughout history, kings have rewarded faithful servants by giving them positions of significant responsibility over others in the kingdom. For example, in Daniel 6:3, modern government leaders typically do the same thing. The master's decision reflects the principle that he who is faithful is in little will be faithful in much. Verse 18 through 19. The second servant had also been faithful. but he had only earned 500% return on the master's investment. He did not receive as much commendation as the first servant, or as much reward, but his reward was also proportionate to his service. This shows the rewards will vary depending on a servant's effectiveness. The reward is not rest, but the opportunity for wider service. 20 through 21. Another servant reported that he had not earned anything with the master's deposit. Keeping money in a scarf, sodarion, was a common practice in Jesus' day, but it was unsafe and unproductive. This person represents someone who does nothing of eternal value with his life. The servant explained that his fear of the master was responsible for his lack of fruit. It was appropriate for him to fear the master, since the master would eventually bring his servants to account. But the servant's action in view of his fear of the master was improper. He should have gotten busy and served the master since he feared him. His assessment of the master was correct, but it did not have the proper effect on him. God seeks a disproportionately high return on his investments, so the servant's conservatism was sinful. He appears to have felt that he would have received no reward for his work for the master if he ever returned. He should have taken some risk. Faithful stewardship involves taking calculated risk, taking up what one has not laid down and reaping what one has not sown, were evidently proverbial expressions similar to getting blood out of a stone, or kind of like what we say, getting blood out of a turnip. They describe a strict, exacting person. 22 through 23. The master said he would judge the servant on the basis of his own words, namely, that the master was an exacting man who demanded much from his servants. Rather than commending them, the master condemned this servant, calling him worthless, that is, unproductive. He had produced nothing of value for the master. The master's character should have moved the servant to productive service rather than passive sloth. Even by depositing his investment in a bank, the servant could have earned some interest for the master with little risk. Probably the bank in the parable represents a safe investment with comparatively little risk. The bystanders in the parable represent those who assist Jesus in carrying out his will, perhaps angels or other human servants. The unfaithful servant lost even what the master had given him. If the mina each servant received represents his life potential, that servant would lose that. The master gave it instead to the most faithful servant. This seems to mean that God's faithful servants will receive additional opportunities to glorify him in the next stage of their service, as well as authority over others. The next stage of the servant's service will be millennial service in the kingdom. It will be for the Christians as well. In the Christian life, we do not stand still. We use our gifts and make progress as we lose what we have. That's from another commentary. 25 through 26. This arrangement appeared unjust to the bystanders. So just like how the Muslims or whoever's making a comment on this commentary might feel like that this is an unjust passage or a justification to do unjust acts, we can see that in the context, these bystanders also felt that something was unjust. But let's see what the response is. They probably thought the unfaithful servant mina should have gone to a servant with a smaller reward. They were looking at what was best for the servants. However, the master was operating on the principle that faithfulness with little indicates faithfulness in much. Therefore, it was to the advantage to give the unfaithful servant's mina to the most faithful servant, because he would make the best use of it. The master expressed this truth proverbially. He was looking at what was best for himself. Obviously, what is best for God is more important than what is best for his servants. Still, the master's action was also fair to his servants, since the servant who glorified the master most received the greatest reward. Zacchaeus, who was listening to this parable, had just promised to give half of his possessions to the poor, and to reimburse anyone who had defrauded fourfold. Jesus' teaching here would have encouraged him to follow through on his commitment. He would have a great reward, much treasure in heaven, if he so served the master faithfully. The master now dealt with a different group of people. These were the enemies who opposed his rule over them. This is the controversial issue. So what we've seen so far is this parable is emphasizing accountability for service. But now but it's also explaining how that relates to the issue of how does a person serve God until Christ returns and to bring in the kingdom. These were the enemies who opposed his rule over him, not his servants. They suffered a fate that was typical for such rebels in the ancient world. They correspond to unbelievers in Jesus. They would not only lose a reward, but their very lives. Physical death is the parable represents spiritual death in reality. The judgment will come after Jesus returns and rewards believers at the second coming. He will then also slay his enemies. You can see that in John 5:22 and in Acts 17:31. In Acts 3, the people of Jerusalem are accused not only of killing Jesus, but also of denying him. This repudiation is emphasized in the story of the throne claimant, in addition to the parable of the pounds found only in Luke. The teaching of the parable is quite clear. Here's the point of the parable. Jesus was not going to begin his reign as Messiah immediately. He was going away and will return later to reign. During his absence, his servants, believing disciples, need to invest what God has given them for his glory. He will reward them in proportion to what they have produced for him. This parable teaches that everyone is accountable to God, and everyone will receive what he or she deserves from the king. It provided a warning for the unbelievers in Jesus' audience, as well as believers in view of the postponement of the kingdom. This parable clarifies that while salvation and entrance into the kingdom come by faith in Jesus, reward for service rests on the believer's work. Both salvation and rewards come as a result of God's grace. Christians have consistently confused teaching about salvation and rewards. Salvation that does not depend on working for God, but resting in what Jesus Christ has done. Rewards do not depend on resting in what Jesus do not depend on resting on what Jesus Christ has done, but on working for God. It is a misunderstanding of scriptural revelation to conclude that because God has saved us by grace, we need to do nothing but lie back and wait for heaven. Such believers constitute irresponsible stewardship that Jesus Christ will punish by withholding a reward. In view of what lies ahead of us, we need to be steadfast, immovable, always abounding in the work of the Lord, knowing that our labor or toil is not in vain in the Lord. We are all accountable to God for how we conduct our journey through his world. One day he will render judgment. This concept is not popular in some circles today, but it is a biblical concept. The parable of talents found in Matthew 25 teaches us that God gives everyone a different amount to invest for his glory. Some people have more intelligence or talent or money than others. The parable of the minutes teaches that God gave all his servants the same opportunity to invest for his glory. Everyone has only one life. Both believers and unbelievers play a part in both parables. Both parables advocate belief in Jesus' faithfulness and preparedness, and they both show that God will deal with all people justly, graciously, and generously. Many amillennial and postmillennial interpreters, postmillennialists, believe that the millennium will be brought in through the church. Usually, that things will get better and better. There are variations in that, but that's basically what it is. Postmillennial interpreters view the parable as prefiguring the fall of Jerusalem and its attendant massacres. Post-tribulationists, people that believe that the rapture will happen after that, usually view it similar to pre-tribulationists. The parable ends the long part of Luke's gospel that deals with Jesus' ministry as he traveled to Jerusalem from Galilee. Luke's narrative highlighting Jesus' lesson to the multitudes and the disciples' views of impending passion. This parable also concludes the section dealing with the recipients of salvation, stressing their responsibility. Okay, I know that was a lot to read, but the point is that if you're going to deal with the passage, this material is free for anyone that wants it. And so if you're not a Christian, if you are a Christian, then I suggest you access this resource. If you're going to debate, if you're going to engage in current scholarship, this resource will be a gateway into that for their dialogue. And for the Muslims that are out there, when I interacted with Muslims, they always said this: ask those that know. So whenever you're interacting with people, make sure they're an authority on an issue, or at least are studying, researching all this. Because, there's another thing that the Muslims say. They say that be careful not to ask a question that you're not ready for the answer. So as you all ask these questions, as you're critical of the text, as you deal with these things, understand that it's going to take a lifetime of study. And don't be like the camel with books on his back. Crack those books. Thanks, CA.
Alrighty then. Thank you, Charles, for that Bible lesson. For some of those that didn't know, this is also a part-time theological seminary, then we just decided to kidnap Charles to teach y'all some lessons, I guess. Anyways, um, but getting back to the topic on Johnny, on his statements, we want to get a couple new perspectives. I don't know if Gary, if you want side chat, if you want to deal on that. But first off, I've had the wonderful opportunity to interview this person whose name is Tempest Kitty, and I will mention this for those who are watching. If y'all don't understand her at times, it's because she said that there's some construction going on in her area, so there will be some background noise, or possible if these people are, serial killers, then you'll hear static. So, Tempest, are you there?
I'm sorry. There we go. How's that?
Sounds wonderful. Loud and
Thank
clear.
you. Thank you. Yeah, in a small lull of all the banging and sawing and noise. So, yeah. It's very good.
How's it going in
Thank you for
Australia?
having me.
No problem.
It's pretty overcast at the moment. It's been raining a lot. It's supposed to be like warm and hot because it's it's supposed to be getting into summer, but we're not seeing it at the moment, which is a bit of a bugger.
Summer for y'all, it's cold winter for me, at least.
Yeah, I don't envy you that. I'd rather, yeah, I'm a warm kitty. I prefer to have it hot or tropical climate. So yeah.
Good. All right, so just to fill you in on what has been stated, yeah, Johnny has in a recent hangout video that he's made, and that's normally how he does his videos. Instead of making like, I don't know, 10 or 8-minute videos like some people do these days, he uses hangout technology to make 1 to 2 hour videos. And he did one last night called President Vladimir Putin, please teach Turkey a lesson they'll never forget. And in the thing, he basically was in a style of like an open letter to Vladimir Putin, was saying, okay, Vladimir Putin, here's what you need to do. You need to bring me and a few other ex-Muslims. And one thing I suggest to really make sure that they don't forget is to use some kind of laser and strike down on this guy named Adawan, and make sure it like gets through his fingers, so some of it gets cut off and you can see the blood coming out of it. And also, their Quran tells them, a certain amount of lashes. I tell you this: how about we double it? How about we go 500 lashes? Give him 500 lashes, and then open his Quran and spit on it. Spit on it, call it garbage. And I'm just sitting here and I'm like, you're supposed to be a Christian, Johnny, and this is the attitude you're going for to not only, sure, a politician can do what they want, but this is something you're advocating for. This is the desire that you wish to have fall on somebody as a Christian. So, I don't know, I mean, you can talk about that perspective or just the political, social perspective on this. What is your take on what he said?
Like I mentioned to you in our text chat, I'm a little bit behind the whole issue. I know of some of what's going on, but I haven't really been paying that much attention in the news to it. However, sorry, is it Jack or John?
Johnny. That's
Johnny. Sorry, Johnny. Yeah.
And he's an ex-Muslim. Johnny's not even his real name. He doesn't want to reveal his real name because he is hiding from some Muslim people that he knew, because the whole thing, leave the faith, they kill you.
Yeah, that's kind of unfortunate and a bit sad too. But on the same token, though, I think, from both the political point of view standpoint, that there is I'm not going to say there's 100% correct way about going about something, but there's a way that is more right and probably better suited than others. And what he's advocating, I don't think is anywhere near that, actually. that's a little bit extreme, and you know, he may harbour some very strong feelings about the situation, and that's fine. You know, everybody can get upset, or you know, there's things that will get people upset or riled up, and that's okay. But violence and that sort of thing is really never the answer, in my opinion. So yeah, I think he's pretty much, you know, he's got the wrong end of the stick. Maybe, you know, he's got himself all rolled up, and maybe he'll calm down. I don't know. I don't know the person at all. But as far as I can see, at least from what you've told me, yeah, he's pretty much barking up the wrong tree with as how to sort of sort the issue. Now, whether Putin, what he does, that will be interesting to see, the course of action that he takes. Me personally, I don't know. I don't think I could suggest a course of action to remedy the particular situation, but anything that's more that doesn't involve, you know, having to bomb or shoot or kill each other, I would be in favour for.
Right.
Yeah.
And I've asked him, you know, why advocate that when we could just, you know, if you want try to go there or something, you know, why do we have to focus and advocate extreme violence? Why not just preach the gospel? And Johnny said, well, you know, that's what we should do, and that helps a bit, you know. Just, you know, don't kill him, you know, like, lash him 500 times, almost injure him terribly with the weapon of the laser, and publicly humiliate him, spit on his Quran, and then say, hey, would you like to learn about Lord and Savior Jesus Christ?
That's not a good. I hate to say it, but I mean, now I don't know if anybody has met me before at all, but I'm an atheist, so.
Right.
I believe in no gods of any sort. So as far as trying to introduce somebody to your religion, though, with the goal of getting them on your side and perhaps, you know, whether that be to convert or, you know, just sort of maybe help their lives a little bit better. I don't think that's I mean, I don't know about any of you, but you know, if someone came up to me and started slapping me around and kicking me and lashing me, and then said, "Hey, by the way, you know, now that we've done this to show you how serious we are, would you like to join us?"
Right.
My answer would be no.
Yeah, it's like the thing with this is a problem. Muslims have tried this. The Catholics have tried this. You think right now we've learned that tactic doesn't work anymore.
Yeah, so yeah, a bit catch-22-ish there. You know, I don't think it's going the right way about it, 100%.
Right.
Yeah.
All right, so
a bit strange.
yeah. All right, so Gary, are you able to talk, man? I know you.
Yeah, I'm okay.
All
I
right.
just wanted to express an opinion, and if I sound funny, it's because I don't have any teeth. So if some of the words don't sound right, that's the problem. Anyway, I've known Johnny over the years. Johnny, I think most of the trouble is that he insists on the spotlight, and so he goes from I believe this to I believe that to I believe this and that to I believe, you know, and it's just, it seems to have no rhyme or reason, but he's always certain. And not only is he certain, but if you don't agree with him, you're an apostate. And I guess that's the main thing I see him doing. I think what he really needs to do is slow down a bit and figure out what it is.
All right, so I'm back.
Sorry about that. Go on.
I think all he really needs to do is slow down a little and figure out what it is he believes, and then if he's really certain, then assert. But until then, it's kind of hard to take him seriously. And that's all I have.
All right. Thank you for that, man. We have Preet Wilson in here, and for some of y'all that don't know, Preet was she's a regular in some hangouts, and plus was an opponent that I debated last week on the concept of, rather, is original sin biblical? So welcome to the program, Bree. Okay, so I just got a I am from her. She can't talk, so she's just here to watch. So if you got anything to say in the comments, I'll probably read them out if I'm able to do so while just doing the whole thing. Anyways, okay, so yeah, I really think that with what Johnny's doing, I don't know. This is just my personal opinion, but he used to be an ex-Muslim. He used to be a Muslim, and now he's an ex-Muslim. And the things that he stated is no different than that of what the Islamic practices teach. And he's going off by, like I mentioned, with the thing of 500 lashes. He's recommended a extreme amount of that. I'm pretty sure even the Muslims would think that he's gone crazy at that point. So, but the thing is, he's got that view of Islam and that, but to me it seems like he's putting in Christianity a Islamic perspective of Christianity with how retaliation should be dealt with, and he's advocating this. And plus, he's German. He's from Germany. Well, no, he's Pakistani, but he moved to Germany. But he's focusing on these politic issues and advocating this stuff, even though, from what Charles told me, Putin's kind of like Germany's enemy, right?
Well, I would say that. I believe I would say yes.
Mm-hmm.
Some
by the
people
way,
would
this
disagree.
by the way, since we've already gone to everybody, this is now like kind of free table talk. So if anyone just wants to speak up, don't be afraid to speak up, but it will be moderated, so I will not be afraid to mute people.
I would like to speak up. I would like to speak up.
All right, go ahead. Just remember, I got that mute button in case things go out of hand.
Yep, no problem. It's cool.
All right.
I would like to make a proposition. I think that all of us should kind of have like a little round table with him and ask him some specific questions. And I think this should go on for about an hour. And then after that, I think that we should each have. I think Johnny should each hear us out.
I think he'll do that.
And let him know, what Christianity is and what is not.
Right.
What things are and are not acceptable. You know what I mean? Just like God, He ends up saying what is and what is not acceptable in His creation. And we should say the same thing for Christianity. But of course in a loving way. But I think we should start from there and just see where it goes. That's what I think.
So, I mean,
like a Christian intervention.
Shut up. I keep on telling y'all I'm a counselor, okay? This is what I do for my job. I can't help it. It comes out.
I feel you,
okay?
man.
More Christian counselors.
Hey, no, that's cool. But
leave me alone.
Wait, hold on. So, what is the Tempest?
I was just wanted to pass a comment that maybe not so ex-Muslim. I think probably, depending on how long he was a Muslim for, it's probably a lot harder to make the shift. And maybe all that you're seeing is just the remnants of the prior learnings, teachings, perhaps. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe it's going to give him a bit of time and show him the love and compassion that I'm hearing here. It sounds like not a bad idea.
All right.
Well, I would be glad to teach him. I mean, my interactions with the Muslims was from 2004 all the way up to about 2011. It was a little less than that. Let's see. Probably. And now towards the end, I did less things with them and talked with them and stuff. But so I mean, I've taken marriage and divorce classes on Islam. I've taken Islamic history classes. I've taken stuff on jurisprudence and stuff. That doesn't mean I remember it all, but I may be able to relate to him in a particular way, because he's talking about fiqh and and all of that type of stuff. But the thing is, when I'm hearing CA talk, what I'm possibly hearing is maybe he's asking for poetic justice. Maybe he's saying that, okay, the Muslims do these things. Well, I wish that they would get a taste of their own medicine, and then after they get a taste of their own medicine, they would repent and recognize that this can't be just.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's kind of like whenever you tell a person, okay, you believe that truth is relative, and you say, well, all right, well then this dollar bill, is it a dollar bill or is it 50 cents? You
Right.
know, and you try to give them 50 cents and you owe them a dollar, they're going to say that's not fair. Well, I thought you don't believe in truth, you know. And so there could be that aspect of it. However, I'm not saying kill them all and let God sort them out, that approach right there. But there is biblical precedent for this right here, that God would use other nations to discipline Israel. So what happens is when a person thinks that they have replaced Israel, even if they deny that they believe that, they start thinking in that mentality that if God used one nation to punish another nation, then God can use, and God can, I want to say that, God can use Russia to discipline Syria if he wanted to, or a leader, because God is sovereignly in control of all these things. But that is an issue of the unbelieving world. It's not there's nothing right and morally righteous in Putin, and there's nothing right in the Syria. And according to what the scriptures say, that we're supposed to be praying for all men, all kings. We're supposed to be submissive, you know, and supportive of the government wherever you're at when it doesn't contradict the scriptures. And so there needs to be a little bit more balance in his life. And if I can help in that area, I'm glad to.
Yeah, I've tried helping him because he has, I've heard was a good friend of his, though their friendship is starting to take a wrong turn due to, Johnny's also very ex-Calvinist, and apparently he has accused one of the Christians' most leading apologists that speaks critically against Islam. He says that James White seems to be lenient towards Islam now. He made this claim in his recent hangout, and that's what Veckel was trying to go over. But he's in the video that Veckel did. Veckel has stated that Johnny has publicly confessed and told him that one, Johnny doesn't go to a church. He doesn't attend church of any kind, and that's something that helps people out in the body of Christ. Second off, he hasn't read the entire Bible, which, if he's making big statements and claims as he is, I mean, I haven't read the Bible, and I'm not going to make things that I absolutely know all these things on this. On every single particular topic. There are topics I have little knowledge about.
May I? May I be next? I'm sorry.
Yeah. I just need to go over the third point. Remember, I'm trying to remember. He said that he didn't go to church. Oh yeah, and he had a weak prayer life. Like he rarely prays to God, or he doesn't pray at all. He's admitted that he has a terrible prayer life, and his prayer life stinks. So the fact that he's got these struggles that he's dealing with, and he's doing this towards others, and then comes to the claim now that he's making what should be done, that he wants done. And then eventually, of course, you say, to witness to people, to get them to convert to Christ, the Catholic Crusades or the Muslim Jihad, it's like a Christian Jihad is being advocated here. And I think that he does need if it's not from a physical building church in Germany, then at least with the body of Christ that's on here that can talk to him, So, but Gary, what were you going to say?
There we go. I was going to say, before I was saved, I actually studied at a mosque for a couple of years. Because, I don't know, was looking for God, and I thought, since Muhammad was the last of the prophets, as I saw things, I bet perhaps that was the way to go. Of course, I came to Christ in the long run, but I just wanted to mention that. I do think, as a person who also has trouble making connections in his hometown, it isn't easy to be without a church. Now, I found one finally, but for about 8 years, this was my church, talking to other Christians online. It was the only way I was able to expand my studies. It's one thing, and I have read through the Bible several times, all the way, as well as studied parts of it. But it's only one thing when it's just me and the Holy Spirit, because sometimes you can fool yourself into thinking that it's the Holy Spirit when it's really just you. So, in order to avoid that, it's best to find others to study with, and to, and to make sure that you're not, taking some weird leap off to the side there that you can see, no one else can, and then claiming that the Spirit revealed this to you. God is the same every day, every way. Today, tomorrow, in the future, it doesn't matter. God is always the same. So if it's something that I'm seeing and it's such a tangent that no one else can see it, then I'm probably wrong. And you really can't make those kinds of decisions if you're not interacting with the body. That's all. That's all I have. I think that would really help him. I wish people would do that to me more, too. If they think I'm way off base, then, talk to me. I'm pretty easy to go with, and I think that Johnny would be, too. He just needs to hear it without feeling attacked.
Right.
Don't put him in the corner, and he won't fight. Just like anybody else. And I think that if you just approach him in a loving way, like anyone else, he's going to respond.
I'm getting an echo. Okay, it might be Gary. I'm not sure. Well, Drats. Trying to think of what to talk about now. I don't know. For some of you that are familiar with this, Tempest, have you ever heard of J.D. Kane's channel?
Yes.
You ever heard of Talking? What Tuesdays?
Talking SHIT Tuesdays? Yes.
Yeah. I believe you can tell right now from the title of this. This is sort of a parody of what we're doing with that. It's called Talking Theology Thursdays.
Mm-hmm.
And it's better because it has 3 T's, not 2 T's and an S.
Did you see my side comment? Yes, you saw my side comment. There is a second option, and I know you probably all go boo-boo to me, but, you could come over to the dark side of atheism if you wanted to. That is also an option here.
Oh,
Just putting it on the table. Nothing more.
And we'll see
We're
how
nice
that
people
comes out.
too, We're nice people too.
We know you're nice people.
I love everyone. I'm pretty nice,
Right.
Yeah.
We don't deny that you're nice. We just don't agree with the concept that there is no God. That's the only thing that
I understand.
Right.
But I don't know. I think there's probably more I'll have to say that there might be a little bit more bitch slapping if it was handled in an atheist way. Just to put it, sorry about the language here, but just to put it bluntly, you know, I think we're more prone to perhaps shaking a fellow atheist, going, "What are you thinking?" To sort of try and shake some sense in them. That's probably still not the best course of action in this instance. But no, we love to debate and talk, as you know. So yeah, that's probably what more would happen. But yeah, just putting that option out there, it's fine.
Tempest Kitty, were you ever a Christian?
Was I ever a Christian? No. No, okay. I was born up in a pagan family. So
okay.
Yeah. So I'm sort of that weird percentage, I guess. So, you know, like you always hear the people say, you know, I was a Christian once, but now I'm an atheist, or, you know, and that's probably the most common one you hear. I'm now, I was a pagan once, and now I'm an atheist. So, yeah, I don't have any of that that Christian background grounding, I guess. I mean, I know I've read the Bible and I've studied a little bit and all that sort of stuff, but yeah, I don't have that sort of Christian background, I guess, if you want to call it that.
Okay.
Yeah.
What kind of paganism were you? Wicca, or what were you raised as?
Well, it ended in Wicca for me, but it was mostly just sort of like it's more like a family tradition. It was still nature worship at its core, you know. So we still had, but there wasn't like it wasn't singular God. It was many gods, you know, for the seasons and all that sort of stuff. Yeah.
So you were more into the gardener form of Wicca. Is that what you're kind of like saying?
Yeah, I guess if you want to call it that, because yeah, I think. Yeah, Wicca's sort of picked up. You got to remember, like, Wicca's not that old. You know, it's only like 57 years, 60 years old as far as a religion goes. It was sort of the, you know, one or two guys that popularized the original content, I guess, if you want to call it that. You know, so there was the beliefs. They just sort of condensed it down, and it became that sort of a mainstream thing, basically. But that was nice, though, because, you know, it sort of it gave some organization to a lot of stuff. That was you know, sort of higgledy-piggledy here and there and everywhere. But yeah, so I guess yeah, ultimately I gravitated towards Wicca as it was, because it contained most of the core bits and pieces that I was already brought up to believe in. So yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
In the side chat, I posted another commentary. It's 2014. It's a good commentary. So if anybody wants it, just click on it and y'all can have that. But and that's interesting, you know, because if you would have said you were a Christian, you know, I always tell people that from my position as a Christian, I believe in eternal security. That just as it, you know, in my perspective, I believe that just as it is possible for Johnny to come from Islam to become a Christian, I believe it's possible that Johnny could fall back into Islam. Some Christians don't believe that. I mean, he would still be eternally secure. He would never lose his salvation. And see what happens, though, the chances of him falling back into Islam are very slim, because he's angry with them. We should grieve over sin and not be angry in that sense, wherever it just turns to hatred. But what happens is, as Surreal was talking about earlier, is a young Christian will go to another extreme. And I think this is something common to all mankind, is that we find ourselves at extremes. We find out, I was misled by this, and therefore I start studying this, and I think the truth is here. And then pretty soon that happens a lot, and then a lot of people become skeptics. They stop believing. You know, they give up. But thanks for sharing your journey a little bit. It's always interesting to meet new people and see where they're coming from, so that in future discussions I know how to interact.
That's fine. Very welcome. Always a pleasure to share.
Yeah, I just want to, in order to kind of bring this back around, as Kitty was mentioning atheists tend to do this with a little bit more shock value. I think the problem with doing that is that, especially a person who isn't quite sure themselves, they'll feel it. They feel as though you're attacking them, and therefore they must defend themselves.
Of course.
There's no real. We're not really looking for anyone to feel that way. And I understand, of course, that being an atheist, you don't recognize a capital T truth. However, I will say that I recognize, God's character and the Bible as a capital T truth. God is what He is, and the Bible is how He reveals one of the better ways He reveals His character to us. So if you stay biblical, it's not really, it's not personal. I'm not attacking God, for example. I'm not telling Him He's wrong. I'm simply saying that if you were to just ease up, take a breath, and see things through the Scripture, that you might find that things aren't quite as extreme. Which, as I said when I first started, he was Muslim, and then he was a Calvinist, then he wasn't a Calvinist, and each time, if you'd ever talked, and I talked to him in each phase, if you didn't agree with him, then you were a heretic. It's always, my way or the highway, and that's not conducive to really learning God's character, other than applying that kind of attitude to Him, because it is His way or the highway. But it's not done that way. It's not how He is. He's a lot more patient than that. I guess that's all.
And I turned from a very interesting cat into a handsome butler with glasses. So yes, I ditched the contact lenses. Anyways, so yeah, before we let this free-flowing conversation go on a bit more, if anyone has any recommendations for the lineup of show for tomorrow, for this weekend, tomorrow, of course, is the usual Ask an Apologist hangout. Might start earlier than 8 o'clock. It really depends. But basically in that show, of course, for some of those that are new, because it's never happened yet due to delays in schedule, it's atheists or theists can come in, and if they're curious about any questions that they have, me and probably a guest apologist will answer any questions that anyone has regarding the Christian faith, and we'll see if we can answer them and get to the bottom of, what you like to say. We can even have a good discussion going. But this is straight from Spiritual Alliance Ministries, and our goal is to make sure that when engaging the spiritual discussions, it is done in a honest way. Then Saturday will be theological discussion. If anyone has a topic that they wish to suggest they want to look into regarding theology, the Bible, or a particular passage that they want to discuss, then we can go over that. And then, of course, is our free-for-all, friendly free topic day, Sunday, barbecue fish fry Sunday from the South. So if anyone wants to come there, we will be serving pulled pork sandwiches and leftover turkey from Thanksgiving. And plus, for the special occasion, we will be bringing back Mozart, and he will be accompanied by Charlie Daniels for the epic duo of the century. So you do not want to miss that one, ladies and gentlemen. And we just got a message from Seth in the side chat because I want to bring that out. Seth has said, I dislike every single one of you. So, Seth, let's go over yet. Is there any reason why you dislike every single one of us?
Even me, Seth. Even me, Seth. Come on, don't hate on your brethren.
Seth, you got a mic that's working?
Up until this point, I think I was the only atheist in here. But you know.
I believe so. Oh, hold on. He cannot get a mic to. Oh, okay, he's at work. Okay, so. All right. Well, now I do feel bad for calling him out on that. Shoot. Well, Surreal has been quiet so far. Surreal, would you like to conclude on the Johnny topic and then we can go on to another topic? Would you like to conclude on that? And apparently he's be right back. This whole thing is going down the hill from here right now. Okay.
It's because I'm a fairy. Fairies ruin everything. That's why.
You're a fairy?
A furry.
Oh, a fairy. It's these skull candy earbuds. I think they're already making my earbuds damage already.
And if it pleases you for me to be a fairy, yes, I'll be a fairy for you.
Alright. But yes, furry. Speaking of furries, I haven't seen...
We ruin everything.
Mm-hmm. I haven't seen Vincent in a while, or talked to him in a while. I wonder if he's doing okay.
He is doing okay, but he's well, as okay as life is sort of letting him do, but he's sort of taking time out.
Mm. And okay, we'll say this: one of our viewers, Jim Ripper Jones. Let me see what he said. He was referring to you, Tempest, and he said atheism is a religion. So he left paganism to atheism. Atheists have their own priests and authorities and even churches, and I respond, Tempest is a woman. And he's like, oh, that's a deep voice. Okay.
It is a deep voice, isn't it? It's good. But yeah, I don't know. Atheist being a religion, blah 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 blah. My tongue. Atheism being a religion. Not so much. I think maybe a dictionary looking up the term atheism is appropriate there.
Right. And I remember there was a debate I saw with Tempest. Have you ever heard of James White?
No, but he sounds like he might be the kryptonite to James Brown.
That okay. Probably.
Bad joke.
Bad joke. But he's a Christian apologist. We mentioned him a couple times earlier. He's the guy that we mentioned he's the most critical Christian apologist that is most critical against Islam. But of course, Johnny is saying, you know, he's leaning towards Islam because he's a Calvinist. And of course, that's also the soteriology view I hold to as well. So, you know, he has a big phobia against Calvinists. So, but anyways. James White did a debate. Apparently, I think this was in like the late 80s or the early 90s. This is when James White had hair. And if you look now, of course, he's a bald, skinny guy now with his own radio podcast and does debates with people. But he was doing a debate with Brian Lynch, who was at the time the leader of the American Atheists or something, or the American Atheist Society. And it was a radio debate, and one of the claims that James made is that in certain aspects, atheism isn't a religion, but in a technical standpoint, in the definition-wise, it is a religion, and he uses the, I believe he quoted Webster's unabridged dictionary for what the term was. And this is, of course, how we should go in debates whenever we go into words. We should make sure we define our terms so that whenever we use the word that we plan on using, we have an understanding of what it means by what we use. And so I forget what it was, but it's holds to a. I believe the definition was holding to a set of beliefs or views for a particular ideology. And of course, the guy not only said it was not a religion, but just resulted to, you know, I don't know. And here's the funny thing. I forgot what her name was. Who was the atheist woman? O'Malley, or I'm trying to remember her name. I know it was like a middle O'Malley or something like that. Hold on a second.
No,
O'Hare?
it's not ringing any bells. Not ringing any bells.
You talking about O'Hare?
Also, you know, if atheism was a religion, where's our tax exemption? Hand that over.
Well, it was a while back, but I heard about a club. It was actually a stripper's bar in, I think it was New York. They claimed tax exemption because they claimed religious freedom. So, it is possible.
The Fellowship of Strippers? Is that what it was? Did I hear you right? Did you say it was a stripper bar, or did I mishear you completely?
Yeah, it was a stripper bar. They renamed it. They renamed it, you know. But I had to search for that article later on. But it's a while back when I saw it.
I'm just trying to think of funny names now. What you would call such an institution, to make it sound like it needs tax exemption, like as a charity. I don't know. I don't even know how that works. That's just bizarre.
I'm typing it in. Maybe I can find it. It's in the Huffington Post.
Sorry, say that. Say again.
It's in the Huffington Post. Here. I'll send you the link in the side so you can look at it.
Cool.
Is it over?
No, it's not over. The sound is not
Oh.
good.
Oh, I see what they're trying to do.
Yeah, tax exemption.
Yeah, but tax exemption based on the fact that what the strippers do is art, the dancing.
Well, this is the art one then. Okay, well, there's another one.
Yeah.
Let's see if I can find the other one that's related to religion.
Yeah, he said that, I'll quote, he said that lap dancing is an art form and that in any case the state should not is not qualified to make such determinations and that making such determinations would be a violation of the constitutional right to freedom of expression. They tried. I got to give them that. It looks like they tried really hard.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's great.
Let me try a more specific term. Wow. They got churches for strippers though. I see that.
What's that, sorry?
Strippers for Jesus.
Really?
Yeah.
Isn't that kind of
That's ABC News. I think it's a former stripper though in that situation.
Oh, you mean like it's like more like a peer support group, yeah? Like people who are trying to reform from it.
Yeah.
Reform from
that
it.
one is
Like trying to stop it, yeah?
Yeah. Yeah. Now I'm looking at New York Daily News. Says strip club church not in the cards for Bronx. Maybe they didn't. Maybe they didn't pass it. Let's see what this is. A Bronx topless bar that was almost converted into a church has reopened as a strip club. Okay. Let's see.
Getting naked for Jesus. Right. Bit strange. But yeah, I think actually, what was that show where the guy makes his own church and then they started sending him donations and stuff like that?
Well, I've seen Married with Children do that. Al Bundy did that in an episode. He had the church of No Ma'am.
No. This is an actual one though in America. Oh, what's his name? He's a talk show host, and you know, I'm pulling the biggest mental blank right now. If you give me a moment, it probably will come to me. But he legitimately registered a non-for-profit church, and they called it something strange and funny. And a lot of these audience members and people that saw the show thought it would be funny to send like donations and stuff like that. So he thought that maybe he would get like, you know, a handful of letters or whatever, and they ended up with like a whole room full of boxes and mail and pledges. Wow. And like bags of rice and grain and all sorts of other stuff. It got a little bit out of hand.
So
yeah.
even though you were not a Christian, do you ever read books on religion? I mean, do you study?
Of course. Oh, well, not. Of course. I mean, the Bible I've read at least more a fair few times from cover to cover.
Okay.
Which is not bad, I guess. I mean, I haven't read the Bible in a very long time. I'll say that. So, you know, I generally do have to look up references and stuff like that myself. I'm not one of those awesome people that can just recall the text from their head, which I think is actually a pretty impressive skill to have, because I'd like to have that sort of skill with most books, actually, regardless of whether they're religious or not. That would be pretty handy to be able to do. But yeah, so yes, I have. But yeah, I've studied other religions as well, so rather interesting. It's pretty nice.
What is your main objection to Christianity?
Well, okay, so I'll be at least blunt and honest here, without trying to be offensive. Okay, so basically, I'm just trying to put it in the right words. I don't think it's an objection specifically to Christianity. It's an objection to what I would term all man-made gods. Yeah. So the way I'm viewing it, and so this is, remember, only my personal opinion here. So please don't,
right.
You know, sort of get upset or anything like that. So I'm not attacking anyone. But you know, in the past, there's been man-made religion and gods other than the current, what is known as the current Christian God, I guess, and they've sort of fallen off into obscurity. There's still some other religions remaining, you know, that are branches of the Abrahamic religions. You know, there's been, I'm missing the word now. But there's been many worshipping, you know, many different religions in the past anyway, and they've all sort of either fallen out of favor or been forgotten, or they're now in just a history book. I feel that's sort of the same for all religion, really, because it all seems to be very well man-made and produced by man, and I don't find any evidence contrary to the right. Argument.
Well,
you know.
Well, I you know, you're going to say we don't have this in common, but I'll say it anyway. Well, I'm against man-made religions too and man-made gods. You know.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is what I'm saying. I didn't want to get into like an argument over whose religion is man-made or not, or how you feel about that. That was just my personal opinion. I will state it plainly for you so you know my position at least.
Right, right.
I believe that even both, you know, the God of the Bible, as well as pretty much all other the forms of religion currently are still man-made. And I understand that, you know, people have their faith and they believe what they believe, and that's fine. You can believe what you need to believe, but it doesn't convince me. I believe that it's not true. So that's my position. Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, by the way, I would like to. I'm back. By the way, I would like to. Jack, teacher of the Bible, Jack Coombs, gave the quote of the woman I was trying to remember. Madeline Murray O'Hare is who I was trying to think of.
Right.
She was a famous atheist advocate back then, and the quote that was mentioned in the James White thing was, quote, "An atheist believes that a hospital should be built instead of a church. An atheist believes that that deed must be done instead of prayers said. An atheist strives for involvement in life and not escaping to death, and he wants disease conquered, poverty banished, war eliminated." And, you know, these were some of the things that James White was mentioning in that debate thing. But yeah, thank Jack for reminding me who the name of the person was. But I mean, there are atheists that I can deal with, and you know, they treat people with respect, and I give them the respect back. Like Tempest here, very wonderful lady, very wonderful person.
Well, I'd just like to mention, you know, Seth introduced me to this grand community. Thank you, Seth. He picked me out of nowhere, and we talked a couple of days before we talked with others. But Seth contacted me kind of out of the blue, and off we went. In any case, I've always thought highly of Seth, and I've enjoyed our talks.
I did not know that. Thank you, Seth. And I don't know. For some reason, I keep getting Seth and Ocean mixed up for some odd reason. So I think Ocean's the pagan, but if Seth's an atheist, then yeah, he's another person that I can get in a conversation with, and it doesn't seem that we really conflict or, you know, get into an argument where I'm getting called stupid or idiotic. And I think the reason why I don't get called that in the first place anyways is because I'm not like, Okay, you said that's a filthy lie, so...
You're mellow, that's all. You're just very mellow, you know what I mean? You're like real laid back, so that's the reason why you don't really get called anything. You know what I mean?
Maybe Seth was talking about me filthy lying.
Oh no, he said, okay, he's just saying don't take him seriously in the side chat, especially right now, okay. But, yeah, I don't, that's the other thing, sometimes I can't get, like, inner jokes like that sometimes.
Tone in text is lost.
Right. But yeah, like, there are people like seeing, like, G-Man and others that, whenever they engage in conversations, they can be very
Say his name, you'll invoke him. Sorry.
But there are times that, you know, even though I accept him as a brother in Christ, I think that he needs to be careful with how he approaches people and certain topics. Like, he just bashed me because he thought I was not handling an atheist correctly, according to him. He thought my method of apologetics was not good, and he was criticizing me the entire time. And I'm like, I just want to get to have an honest conversation with people, and I'll carry my apologetics and my conversations how I wish. I think that it's biblical what I'm doing, and I don't see, unless you can point to any scripture that tells me, yell at somebody and get a megaphone out and start shouting into it, then maybe I'll believe you then. But till then, I'm going to just engage in a nice conversation.
Hey, CA, did you read my paper that I wrote on Google Plus for my social theory class?
Not yet, but I did see it was posted on the Spiritually Honest
Yeah,
Ministries
I
page.
mean, there was a lot more work, but that's what I had to turn in. So I may do more in the future or something. But
I
Speaking
look
of,
on your. I guess I'll look on your book.
no, you'll find it in the Spiritual Honest group. I don't know if you'll find it on my page. I've posted so many things. It's probably way down there.
right. Speaking of which, if anyone is curious and wants to check out the Christian ministry group that is looking to bring forth these kind of open dialogues and to engage in this kind of deal with papers and philosophies on the topic while preaching the gospel in an honest way, check out the Spiritually Honest Ministries community page on the Google Plus channel. We have 31 members so far. It is going good, full of good Christian dialogue, and hopefully that things can turn out well for them who want to join in on the ministry and help out, do some projects on the side. So, anyways, we're going to just go into the off-air portion of the hangout from here. This has been a parody of the J.D. Kane deal known as Talking You Know What Tuesday. This has been Talking Theology Thursdays, and it's better because it's got 3 T's. But anyways, I will say this though before we end. Johnny, I love you, brother, but based on the things we've talked about and heard from you, I'd honestly suggest that you seek some guidance. Read your Bible more. Go to a church. You know, that helps out when it comes to what any questions or spiritual guidance you need. Go to, look things up, man. Just don't. These things you're saying for advocating for a death upon someone, an ill harm upon somebody. You're asking for someone to be almost killed. It's not good. It's not Christ-like. I'm just saying.
At least, Johnny, pray.
Yeah.
I mean, say you have problems with that brother. It's not, just remember, he's our friend as well as our God. He wants to talk to you. He wants to have a relationship with you, and, he'll only do that if to reach out your hand. To reach out your hand and pray.
So, that's all I want to say, but until then, the usual. Shalom Aleichem.